Welcome to Rico 12. My name is Lisa S. and I have the disease of alcoholism. We begin today, guys, with a moment's silence for the still suffering inside and outside of these Zoom rooms, followed by the set aside prayer. Dear God, please set aside anything we think we know about ourselves, about our disease, about the big book, the 12 steps, the program, the fellowship, the people in the fellowship, and all spiritual terms, especially you, God, so that we may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please help us to see the truth. We surrender this next hour to you. Your will, not ours, be done. Amen. So I'm very blessed to be the host of this meeting and podcast that is the Afro Euro time zones. I hope that you'll join us and draw strength and hope from these podcasts that we will host Fridays at 12 p.m. UK time, and it's 1 p.m. South African time and European time, and 7 a.m. Eastern American time. Rico 12 is an organization with the mission of learning and sharing the similarities of addiction of all kinds and gaining and sharing tools and hopes from others who have walked a similar path. We come together from all places, faiths and backgrounds to gain tools and hope from others. Speakers from our past meetings have represented many fellowships, addictions and afflictions, and we look forward to continuing to add to the diversity of speakers and backgrounds. And I hope you will reach out if you think your experience, strength and hope will benefit this special community. Today's speaker is Maya, who'll be speaking for around 30 minutes, and we'll get her to share, and then we can have Q&A afterwards. Just for a bit of business, the Rico 12 family of recovery resources continues to grow, has more and more resources for the addict and the loved ones of those addicted. A couple of projects, one of which is the Rico 12 Roundtable. We have Nikki M, Justin B, and David G, who goes through line by line. Great resource, really brings the book to life. They really do bring it to life and put their take on their own experience, strength and hope with it. It's a great resource, and I'll pop that all in the chat during the live meeting. Tradition 7, Rico 12 is a self-supporting service, and we appreciate your help in keeping us working our step 12 in this manner. We gratefully accept one-time contributions through PayPal, Venmo and Wise. Also, that'll be through the links in the chat. We also offer a monthly subscription program called Rico 12 Spearheads. To join in and help support these cool projects, please consider donating at www.rico12.com/support, or you can click on the link in the chat again during the live meeting or on the Rico 12 website. We look forward each meeting to growing deeper in effectiveness and understanding as we learn from and with our special speakers. And today, we are very blessed to have Maya to grow with today, and who's going to be speaking on grounded by steps and rooted by principles. And I just love this, Maya. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you for your service and everyone on service at this meeting and everyone who's attended. My name's Maya. I'm a grateful alcoholic today. My sobriety date is the 15th of May, 2022. I've just celebrated 4 years of continuous sobriety. And for that, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to a power that I have in my life today, who I choose to call God. Who I choose to call God, you know, the Most High, the Father of Light that presides over us. I'm deeply rooted in God today, and for that I'm so, so grateful. So yeah, my name's Maya. I'm an alcoholic. I came into these rooms just over 4 years ago, and I was broken, man. You know, I came in and I was a liar and a cheat and a thief, you know. I was a heartbreaker. I'd break your heart, My drinking was destructive. My drinking was very, very destructive. My drinking hurt a lot of people, and I was powerless. I was powerless over this disease. I had no power. And I was in and out of these rooms 15 years. And I thought that it was a case of willpower. It was a case of, you know, just do it. Just make a decision and do it. And I didn't realize how deep rooted this disease was. I didn't realize. And today, the way I see this disease is this disease is a low level search for God. And, I believe that I've always been rooted in spirit, always from the day I was born. I've always been connected to my creator. And I believe that today. And growing up, I was looking around in this material world. I was looking around in this environment to find something to fill that emptiness, to fill that gap, to fill that hole in my soul. I had a father who loved me. He loved me so much, and he loved to drink alcohol. I had a mother who loved me, but she found it really difficult to show love and affection. And I resented her for it, I resented her for it. Why couldn't she just be so open-heartedly loving and caring and compassionate and emotionally connected like my father was? She wasn't, of no fault of her own, which I didn't know at the time. However, I was resentful to her. I was resentful towards my siblings because they didn't suffer from this disease. They didn't suffer from this soul sickness. They didn't suffer from this emptiness, this hole, man. And it's like an abyss, and it just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. I remember, like I said, my dad was a very he was a well-off person. He was very blessed. God was very gracious to him. He had businesses, he had cars, he had money. He had the money, property, and prestige. And although he was deep rooted in God and he worshipped God, and I grew up in a household that was very, very religious. My dad had a lot of pride, a lot of ego. He worshipped the God of reason. He loved money, he loved property, and he loved prestige, and he had the hugest ego. And I grew to be like that as well. I wanted those things. I wanted the money and the cars and the property and the prestige and the nice boyfriend. And I had my what I thought at the time was standards. And the boyfriend, the guy had to match that standard, and he had to be on that level, to fill that hole in my soul. You see, because he was there for me to make me happy. So I thought, and this was my way of thinking. At a young age, I was blessed to be given beauty and a nice figure and money, and I drove nice cars, and the men loved me and the women hated me. I had very few friends, and I seeked love and attention from men, and just like any other alcoholic, man, I looked for love in all the wrong places. And I met this guy, and I didn't really like him. And I remember my friends, saying like, "What are you doing with this person?" And he was a drug dealer, and he had money, and he was dripped in labels, and I loved all that. He had the car, he had the watch. And that was me, man. That was me. And that was what I looked for in a man, the jewelry and the watch and the cars. And guess what? He had what I needed. He had the drugs, he had the money, he had the lifestyle, and I wanted that lifestyle. And it didn't matter if I was attracted to him or not. And he had a reputation, but that didn't deter me, because like I said, he had what I wanted.
Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M and me, Justin B, on Rico 12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M, streaming now on your favorite podcast platform.
He could give me what I wanted, so I bought, and my drug intake, grew. I started using, I started drinking with him, and people would say to me, "What you do with that crackhead?" And I'll be like, "He's not a crackhead." And yeah, man, he was fulfilling my needs at the time. Like I said, the money, the property, the prestige, and my family were deep rooted in prayer. They were very, very, and today I can see that their prayers were working in my life even then. Because their prayers were saving me, and I didn't even know it. Their prayers were saving me from, their prayers were saving me, man, from missing that train, from missing that flight, from sitting in traffic. I remember the day when I was supposed to see him, and he was like, "Babes, I can't see you tonight." And I was really, really angry, and he said he had to go somewhere. And that night I found out that, he had been shot, and he was on his way back, and he was outside his house, and he was waiting for the gates to open, and he had hits on him. That's what I'm saying. Those prayers, those prayers that were deep rooted were saving me, because this was a guy that I shouldn't have been around. This was a guy who people were after. People were after him for money. People were after him for his life. I was always with him. I was fearless. I was fearless because I had the drink and the drugs inside me. And at the end of the day, I was selfish and I was self-centered, man. And I don't know if I loved him. I do not know if I loved him, but I do know that I loved the way he made me feel. I loved the way he made me feel. I loved the effect produced when I was with him. And so I continue seeing this person, and like I said, that day I was supposed to be with him, and by God's grace I wasn't with him, and he was coming home late at night, and he got shot about 5 times, and he survived. But that still didn't deter me, man. That still didn't deter me from wanting to be with him. And like I said, man, I love the lifestyle, and that thing was just filling that hole in my soul, man. The drugs and the alcohol. And I found myself in psychosis, and shortly after, an alcohol and drug infused psychosis. And that was God's grace, man. That was God's grace. Again, that was my family's prayers, my dad's prayers, my mother's prayers, who knew that I was out there, and I was doing bad things, and they didn't know who I was with and what I was doing, and I became a liar and a cheat and a thief, and breaking hearts, And that drug infused psychosis led me back to my family. It led me back to my family, and it led me back to a place of safety where I could detox, where I could get better. And it was from there that I started seeking for this God. I started seeking for this God of reason, this God of worship that my dad believed in. And I felt no peace, and I felt no connection. And I was resentful towards God for how my life had turned out, I was resentful towards my family. And what happens is, by the grace of God, this guy is I leave him. I don't know how I left him, but I walked away from him, and now I know why God was protecting me from what could have been. Had I stayed with him, my life would have been. I probably would not be sitting here today. you know, and my addiction. I've got an addiction of more, man. And like I said, this hole in my soul, I needed it filling, and I drank. You know, I left the drugs behind, and I drank alcoholically, and that caused problems, man. And I was that tornado, and I was raging through everyone's lives. I couldn't maintain relationships. You know, I'd be in a relationship, and you know, I would use my God-given beauty. I would use my money and my looks and my prestige to make him feel jealous and uncomfortable, and I'd arouse suspicion, and I'd arouse bitterness, and all these things, because I'm in self and I need what I need and I want it now, right? So that's how I was behaving. I was a disgusting drunk. I was horrible. I emotionally manipulated people, you know, and I knew how to get what I wanted. And my world was getting very dark very quickly. I got pregnant and I lost my baby boy after childbirth, and I was resentful towards God, man. I was so resentful towards God, because why was I not getting that instant ease and comfort that I needed, man? I needed that ease and comfort. I needed you to make me feel better. I needed the relief now, and it wasn't coming now, and the pain was just getting worse and worse. And the only thing was those voices in my head, that spiritual malady, those voices in my head that was telling me I was no good, and I killed my son, and I was, you know, my family didn't love me, and all sorts, you know, that was what was going on. And I was listening to those voices, and I was drowning those voices in alcohol, and my, you know, the road to recovery became very, very narrow. Like I said, my dad drank. My dad loved to drink, and my dad was drinking. My dad got liver cirrhosis. My dad was diagnosed. I watched him drink, and I watched him die in the ICU. I watched him lay there. And this disease is so cunning, baffling, and powerful. That should have been my spiritual awakening. But guess what? I drank. I drank to get through his funeral. I drank to get through the service. I drank. And after that, you know, I just did not want to live. I'd lost 2 people in my life. My heart was broken. And I just drank, man. I just drank, and I didn't want to wake up in the morning. I didn't want to wake up in the morning. And like I said, I was waking up with that guilt, shame, and remorse. Why was I waking up with the guilt, shame, and remorse? Because I was still rooted in this creator. I was still rooted in this power. My conscience was still telling me what I was doing was bad. My conscience, when I was waking up in the morning with guilt, shame, and remorse, that feeling, that God consciousness inside me, you know, my spirit was breaking, my soul was breaking, and I just couldn't stop. What once was my solution now became my enemy. It became my master. I couldn't get away from it. I tried to get sober. I came into the rooms. I got myself a sponsor, but I wasn't willing. I came in, I got patched up. You know, you guys gave me the band-aids and gave me the medicine, and I'd get a little bit better, and I think I know it all, and I'd go back out there. And this continued, man, until I came into the rooms absolutely broken and beaten. A drunk mum. By this time, I've got an 11-year-old daughter who, again, was saved 3 times before she was born by the grace of God. By the mother who prayed for me, by the family that were praying for me, by your prayers, by people in the fellowship, you know. I was that lost sheep. I kept veering off, and I kept leaving, and you know, God kept coming to find me, man, and God's grace kept falling on me, and I wasn't ready to open that door, and I wasn't ready to surrender. And the day I surrendered was the best thing I ever did, man. I was sick and tired of this dark world. I was sick and tired of what I was doing. And I think for the first time in about 10 years, I had the desire to want to live, man. I had the desire to want to live, to be a mum, to be a daughter. I don't know what happened. All I know is my knees hit the floor. And when my knees hit the floor and I prayed, And I prayed to this power and I asked this power to help me. And I was willing to do. Someone said to me, what made you stop relapsing? Do you know what made me relapsing? I was willing to do anything to stay sober. I was willing to do anything not to walk back into that fire. I was willing to do anything to get out of the valley. I was willing, man. I was so scared of drinking that I was in meetings 24/7, 24 hours a day. I was praying, I was hitting my knees, and that's what I was doing different, man. I was humbling myself and getting on my knees every day, and God sent these angels, a whole host of angels, and I was picking up messages and I was being awakened one day at a time. One day at a time I was being awakened, and I started working on these steps, and I found out that I'm suffering from a spiritual thirst, man. I'm seeking for a power, and that's not at the bottom of a bottle, man. I'm seeking for my creator. I'm seeking for this connection with my creator. And I've been disconnected from the power through my life choices, through my decisions and things that I've decided to do and people that I've decided to be. I, have disconnected this power. This was a self-imposed crisis, and I started to get hope, man. I came into the rooms and I heard your stories, and you'd done the same things that I'd done, man. And I was getting some hope, man, and that seed was being planted. And every time you told your stories and I listened to your stories and I cried, that seed was being nurtured and then it was being watered. And I didn't know what was going on, but something was going on beneath those roots, man. Something was going on. Something was going on, and another thing is, you know what? I was completely honest. I was sick of the lies. I needed to be honest. I was ready to be honest. I was ready to face myself. And one thing I did was each time I did a step or I picked up a book or I worked with a sponsor, I prayed first. Because I was told I don't have the power. I don't have the power to get me through these steps. I don't have the power to go through this house cleaning. And what kept leading me back out into the rooms was I wasn't cleaning house, right? I was going back out there and I was bringing back the filth and I was bringing back the junk, whether it was the bad boyfriend or the bad company or whatever it was, man. The defects, the darkness, I was bringing it back. But this time I was ready to clean house, man. I was ready to clean house and I was ready to shut the door on my old life, whereas before I still wanted that life. I still wanted that life, but I wanted recovery. I wanted all the fruits of the spirit. I wanted to be rooted in God. I wanted the blessings and everything that you had, but I still wanted one hand, one foot into that life. But this time I was willing to shut the door and protect my peace. And that's what I did. I shut the door and I protected my peace. And I started to walk hand in hand with this creator, and I had no idea what this creator was or who this creator was, And slowly but surely, I started becoming more rooted in prayer. I started becoming more rooted in believing. And all it took was, I had to believe that there was something out there. And it says, man, the kingdom of God is within you. The God is right here. And Bill talked about it the other day. I was looking in the clouds for God. I was getting to cloud 9 and need. Do you know what I mean? Like Lisa's laughing. It's true. I was searching for God everywhere. All I had to do was believe and stop doubting myself and believe. And you guys helped me to believe, and you gave me hope. And I had to be willing to do anything, man. I had to be willing, and I was willing. And it's part of our spiritual principles, So I come into these rooms and, I start working these steps, and I don't realize that the steps are associated with principles. And that means, getting honest and, honesty, hope, integrity, all these things that I started looking at myself. And one thing, one thing that happened to me while I was having these steps, you know, I told you I came in with a lot of resentments towards God, right? And I realized that all those resentments on my list, every single resentment that I had on that list, I'd caused that person some sort of harm. And like it says in the book, man, I set the ball rolling every time. So those resentments that I had were on my list to make amends. I just wanted to get right with God. I wanted to get right with the world, man. And like I said, the willingness to change. The fifth step, when I did the fifth step and I could finally see what I'd become, I didn't like what I saw, man. I didn't like what I saw, and I found a lot of it objectionable, and a lot of these character defects that I talked to you about before, the manipulation, the selfish, the self-centeredness, the lying, the dishonesty, the cheating, you know, all of these things, the greed, the pride, the envy, money, property, and prestige, you know, all these things. I needed them to be gone. If I wanted to truly walk hand in hand with this creator, man, and I went through the steps. And don't get me wrong, before I came into AA, I went to church and I did all these things, but what Alcoholics Anonymous gave me was the 12 steps. The 12 steps is what I needed. Trust God, clean house, and help others. I needed to go through that soul cleansing process. And I went through that process, man, and I started meeting women, and man, the biggest thing for me, I started doing service, and I met this wonderful man called Gordon, and Gordon saw something in me, and he asked me to come and do service at his meeting, and I went over. My world just changed, man. My world just changed, and I was hosting on the Wednesday step meeting, and I was so honored and privileged to hear the most beautiful stories from step 1 to 12, man. Different speakers every single time, you know. And I became rooted in the steps. And I was listening to how people do their steps and how they live every day, and that was helping me, man. That was helping me. That opened my world to recovery. It opened my world to recovery, and like I said, I became God connected. I became God connected, and there was a time in my recovery where I felt like, you know, I lost my sense of my primary purpose. And again, I went looking for love in all the wrong places, and I could see that my defects were coming back out, and I was getting sicker and sicker because I could see that I was becoming more selfish and self-centered, and my motives were all about me, you know. And although I wasn't drinking, I was getting very, very sick, man. I was getting very, very sick, and God was closing some doors, man. God was closing some doors, and they were painful. And they were painful. And I read somewhere the other day, man, when the doors are closed, praise God in the hallway, man. There's a reason why those doors are closing. People come into my life for a reason and a season, and it's not because they're good people or bad people. It's because these are the lessons that I have to learn. These are the trials and tribulations. This is when they say life is in session. And things happen, man, and I'm being tested. And what do? Do I turn to my creator? Do I turn to my primary purpose? Do I root myself in these steps? Do I ground myself by these steps? You know, am I rooted in this power greater? Am I seeking God's will for me? And I wasn't. In sobriety, 2 years sober, running around thinking I'm Miss AA and I'm hosting this meeting and I'm this, that, and the other. but I'm dying inside. I'm really, really dying inside, you know. And the most amazing, beautiful people come into my life, and I start to be awakened, and you know, I found a really, really, really valuable lesson at this point in my life. You know, when I did that fourth step for the second time and the fifth step, I found I was very critical. I was very judgmental. I was criticizing, I was judging, and I was envying, and I was, you know, I was back in that. My head was back in that state. My head was back in that state, and I was getting very, very sick. And these women listened to me, and they were deep rooted in principle, and my sponsor, you know, I trusted her, man, and I could see, man, I could see that I wanted what she had, and the reason why I wanted what she had was because she was honest, man. She was honest, and she was loving, and she was compassionate, and she didn't judge me, she didn't criticize me. She met me where I was, you know. She didn't care who I slept with or what I'd done. She met me right where I was, you know. And she said, me too. She said, me too. And that's when I started really trusting in this person, and I got through one of the hardest times in my recovery. I got through it. And that's when I saw that there were people around me that stuck around, you know. Those people stuck around and they loved me. And I remember my sponsor saying to me, do you know what? Gossip will be gossip and people will say what they want, but the ones who really know you will know you. And it's the truth. You know, I don't engage in, I try not to engage in gossip today. I try not to I wake up in the morning, man, and I ask God to remove these defects, meaning I ask God to remove my envy and my jealousy and my pride and my ego and the dishonesty, man. Help me watch my motives. That's another big one for me, man. My motives. What are my motives? Am I just being nice to you because I want something you've got? You know? Am I just being like what am I doing here? Am I able to sit and listen to another woman the way my sponsor sits and listens to me without being judgmental and critical and condemning and all this kind of stuff? I am today. What kind of God? You know, I have a God of my own understanding today. My God is loving and kind and caring and forgiving and compassionate and not judgmental. You see, I want all these things from God. I have to be all these things myself. I have to mirror it today. My principle is I have to try my best to mirror these principles that are coming from my creator, who I chose my conception of this. Yeah. I wanted my God to be like this, which means I have to practice these principles, man. I don't go around gossiping or being nasty or being horrible, or do you know what I mean? Or you know, sometimes yes, sometimes I can watch other people's blessings and become jealous. Sometimes I can forget about my own blessings. You know, I've got to a point in my recovery where honesty is so powerful. Love, honesty, and forgiveness is so powerful. I was sitting in the doctor's office in the therapy room with my daughter just a couple of days ago, and she's really traumatized and she's really angry and she self-harms and she doesn't want to live and all this kind of stuff, and that day I could see that there were only one set of footprints in that sand, man, and it wasn't mine and it wasn't my daughter's. God's been carrying us. And I could sit there, Lisa, I could sit there and listen to her pour her heart out and tell this therapist that, you know, she was only 4 or 5 years old She didn't know whether mummy was still breathing. She didn't know. Like, I was just lying there like a corpse. I was blacked out, passed out, and she didn't know what to do. And she'd have to feed herself, and she'd have to come and she learned how to climb. And she used to climb into the cupboards, and I'd make sure there were snacks there, and she would eat, and she'd be so scared. And for the first time in my life, and I know that strength came from this power, man, this thing that I'm deeply rooted and connected to today. God's giving me the power and I'm humbling myself, and I'm listening to all these things that I put her through and all these things that I've done. And by God, I never want to go back to that woman ever again. I never want to be that person ever again. And I get to sit with her while she recovers. I get to listen to all these things. And do you know what? She went into the doctor. She went into to speak to the therapist. And do you know what she said? She said, I feel so empty inside. I feel so numb. I just don't feel, I don't feel anything. And I thought, damn, she's talking about that hole in the soul, man. I've got no friends. No one likes me. I don't feel good enough. She's saying all these things, and I'm thinking, damn. This is God's way of opening my eyes and saying she's got that hole in her soul. She's got that trauma. I had an awakening, and the awakening was, do you know what? Rather than being angry and going around and resenting people and resenting the world for what they're doing to your daughter or what she's going through, you need to root her in these spiritual principles. You need to root her into how to live in this world and how to try and find peace through love and compassion and tolerance and understanding and kindness, not anger, not vengeance, not wrath. It's like Ralph says, man, it's a one-stop shop. It's not just for me, it's for my daughter as well, And I don't know how long I've spoken for, but I tell you what, right? This program has saved my life. It saved my life. And through the power of God, I will continue to try and bring peace and comfort to a traumatized little girl who's still there, stuck there, with that drunk mum, with that tornado, with going through that terror, going through that bewilderment. I can sit there with her and hold her hand while she tries to recover too. And you know what? If you're new here, or if you've just come back after a relapse, or if you just, me too, man. Me too. But God never left my side, man. God goes back for that lost sheep all the time. He's always there, protecting me from the what ifs or what could have happened. Do you know there's so many what could have in my story? If I'd stayed with that guy, what could have happened to me? If I got into that car, what could have happened to me? If I had not been stopped by drink driving, what could have happened? I could have killed someone. I could have killed my child, my second child. So God is working, man. And if you are in these rooms, you're here for a reason. You're here for a purpose. The only way I found peace is by rooting myself in a power greater than myself, and to try and practice these principles in all my affairs. And I'm just so, so grateful today. I'm so grateful for my life. I'm so grateful for my friends. I'm so grateful for everyone who shows up for me on a daily basis. All you guys in the meeting. I love you all, man. I love you all. God bless you. And I wish you a beautiful weekend, man. Thank you so much, Lisa, for asking me. My name's Maya, I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Spearheads, if you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the solution, then you won't want to miss Rico 12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G., Nikki M., and me, the moderator Justin B., 3 recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the big book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, tune in to Rico 12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform.
Oh, right. Do you know what, Maya? That was so beautiful. And I love when you said the low-level search for God was there all along. And that's exactly how I see it. It's like this soul sickness, what we're searching to fill. And we just was looking at all the wrong places. But, you know, I see it now. We're for me, I was taught from day dot that we had to find happiness from all these outside things. I had that drilled into me from school age, you know, and then to discover I had it all back to front. And I loved how you said, Maya, you kept saying about the grace of God. And I've heard this from someone else before, that the grace of God is in everything, but it don't always look like it at the time. And I love that because, you know, sometimes it's not what we want, you know, but things are happening. That divine, you know, power bigger than ourselves is working when we don't even realize. Okay, guys, any of you want to come in and ask Maya some questions, please go ahead, or you can raise your hands, or if you want to just pop your question in the chat, and you can be anonymous if you do want to. Anyone would like to ask Maya a question? Marjorie, come in, love.
Hi, I look horrible because I've been in a spirit of prayer all night. And I relate to her story in the sense that I have a daughter that is not my biological daughter, whose mother went through the same thing, and she was a child in that. And it took 5 years for my husband and I to get her free from that. And I knew and prayed that God would give me a child. And I had 4. I lost a child. And through a horrible situation, I was raped and I lost that child. And I asked God to give me a new one. And ultimately, He gave me Natalie because I prayed that I could have one because I couldn't have any more children. And through that, she's now 11. And along my journey and my walk, I have not always followed God, but I was rooted in it. I was brought up in the church. And I came into these squares on May 23rd because I was on my knees praying for my husband, who is an alcoholic. And I wanted him to come back to God and to come back to the squares and to get help because I was powerless to help him. And in 3 days, God revealed to me that I needed AA, that I had my own addiction, and that I had an alcohol addiction that I was able to pick up and drop off. And in the 5 days prior to me going in the squares, I was drinking the alcohol that my husband was supposed to drink because I didn't want him to drink it, because I didn't want him to change and allow that evil to consume him. And I knew I shouldn't be doing that. And it gave me a thirst for it. And not only was that, but I have a medical marijuana card. And because I could not help my family and fix the problems that they were there, my daughter has emotional issues. She has behavioral issues because of what she endured as a small child and all the way up through different things that have happened in her life through Kenny and I arguing and alcoholism and us just knowing that God put us together, that we were soulmates, but everything in the world tearing us apart and us tearing each other apart. That God has brought me on a journey, and I left for a while because of something that had happened. Because I couldn't stay anymore, because I couldn't see my husband drink himself to death, and because of his actions and what he was doing to us physically, emotionally, and mentally, that I had to protect her from that. And so we left. And through the power of prayer and through the power of God bringing me into these rooms, he made breakthroughs happen. And I can say with confidence that I know my husband's going to be okay. And he's right here next to me. I came back. I listened to what God told me to, even though I still had fear. And God met me in that place through that fear. And I've been breaking chains and generational chains. And I get 3 to 4 hours of sleep. I barely slept last night through this whole journey and for years now. I've been praying, but I haven't let go and let God. I didn't. Until I finally let go and let God, that's when the real work happened. And all these miracles along my journey, people that I didn't know, angels unaware, ministered to me and my daughter that we had to have this time away because God had to work on my husband. And he worked on me, and he worked on my relationship with my daughter, the gift God gave me. She's still broken, but because of the power of prayer, my husband did his own research because from a distance, I told him to read about what she has. She has ADHD, and ADD. Her mother drank and did drugs while she was pregnant. She was born with alcohol fetal syndrome. She has cross-eyed. She had a heart murmur. She had all of these physical problems, and I prayed, and I never let go of that. I never let go of God. I just didn't allow God to lead. I didn't allow God to take control, and I let go of control, and that's when God met me, and he just said to me, "You speak, just speak, be in the meetings, and when I lead you to speak, you let the Holy Ghost speak through you." And I did. And I just kept praying, and I've been in these squares, and I've been in many different meetings. And I actually chaired a meeting, and I told this man that I don't have enough sober time. And he told me that I was supposed to speak, and I knew I was supposed to speak. And I said I wasn't ready yet. It was a week to the day that he had asked me, and God prepared me, and I was ready to speak and to speak my truth. And because of that, a lot of people said what I said resonated with them. And I didn't allow fear, and I didn't allow my own self-doubt to inhibit me from doing that. And because of that, I wanted to save just one, but I impacted the whole room. And it wasn't something that I planned or wanted to do. God used me to do that. And I said that it wasn't me, it was God speaking through me. Because I knew that's what I was called to do, what God wanted me to do, and I surrendered it. And it's just been like that, my journey ever since. And on the way back, God showed me signs in the clouds. My husband and I at the same time looked at this cloud, and it was a heart in the sky. I was in one place, he was in another, and that was God. People, my eyes are open, like she said. You allow the Spirit of God to move, and you allow the Spirit of God to meet you where you are and be imperfectly perfect in God's eyes, because we all sin, and it's a daily walk. It's not day by day, it's moment by moment that the devil can whisper in your ear that these things of fear and doubt and depression and everything that this world has, if we let it consume us, we can't live in the Spirit. We can't allow God to move and to use us and to be able to fix things that we have no ability to fix, only He can fix. When I let go and I let God and I've come back, I allowed the Holy Spirit to give me righteous anger. I was always afraid of it. And through righteous anger, I reached my husband. And now he sits with me today. And he knows. And I know that I know that I know. I say that because God is within me, and I allow the Spirit to speak through me. And in my fear and doubt, never stop loving him, because I know he's my soulmate and God put us together. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful I came in these squares and I listened, and I came into it for him. But that wasn't God's plan. It was God's plan that I come into these squares for me, so that I could come back to him. And because I did that, I was able to reach my husband, because I allowed God to lead instead of me. And the things that I said had impact on him. And now, even last night, we had breakthroughs, because he never knew, because I never told him all the pieces of my brokenness, because I was afraid that I wouldn't be loved. And he loved me that much more, and wished that I had shared them things with him. But everything happens for a reason. And in my pain and in my truth, God is healing, and God is healing now.
Hey, Rico 12 Spearheads. If our recovery resources have helped you, please consider a donation. Your financial support, as well as your word of mouth support, keeps Rico 12 running and reaching the man who is still sick. Donate today at rico12.com/support, or check the show notes for PayPal and Venmo links. Every contribution helps carry the message. Thanks for being a Rico 12 Spearhead.
Oh, that was beautiful, Marjorie. And, our real reliance is on God. Self-reliance fails. And I tried so many times, life run on self-will is never a success. And what a beautiful story. And that, nothing happens in God's world by mistake. And even when times are challenging, when we look back, we see, I loved how May had said about the footprints. There's that, don't know if it's a poem or some writing, but when God's carrying you and you wonder why, there's a bit where the footsteps have vanished. And it's because that's when I was carrying, that's when God was carrying us. But he's always there. That presence is always there, as whether we choose to leave it. God never leaves us. We choose to leave God, but it's always there. I love how you said that. It's deep down within. There is a question in the chat there, and I think May's got problems with her camera. So
please.
Oh, well done. Sorry, that sounded really patronising, Maya. So the question, I expect you can see it. How you become willing after so much rebellious unwillingness. She's been suffering and struggling with victim mentality after 1.5 years in recovery bliss. Any words on this would be so appreciated. Over to you, Maya.
So, my alcoholic, thank you so much, Elizabeth, for your question. Do you know, see, the most beautiful gift of all that God gives me is free will. God gives me free will, and you know, I was that rebellion came from that free will, right? But I'm not your average normal person. You know, I will cross boundaries. I will go further. You know, and I had to be broken. I had to. I call it the gift of desperation. And I heard someone once say, pray for the desperation, pray for that gift of desperation, because that is what drove me to these rooms. The gift of desperation, man. And like I said, the only thing that worked for me was getting on my knees and asking for a sober day. There's a man, and his name's Bill H, and he does a workshop, and I remember when I first got sober and I started attending his workshop, and after 47 years of sobriety, he says he still wakes up in the morning and asks for a sober day. Please help me not take a drink today, God. Give me knowledge of your will for me and the power to carry. There is power in those prayers, and I didn't understand them. You know, the serenity prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. That is my problem. I want to change everything. I want to change the world to my selfish, self-centered ways. I want everything to be my way so I can be happy, joyous, and free. And it's not like that. That serenity prayer is so powerful. God, help me to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, meaning I can start moving my feet. I can start taking action. I can get myself into a meeting. I can stay in a meeting. You know, we've got a blessing of Zoom. We've got 24-hour meetings a day, right? And then the step 3 prayer, I need to surrender every morning to a power greater than myself. I need to surrender my thinking and my behavior and my actions and my reactions. I need to ask God to remove all these defects of character because they still are with me today. They might lie dormant on some days and some weeks, but I still have to ask God to remove me from the selfish, self-centered behavior and thinking. Remove me from the greed, envy, lust, pride, vengefulness. Remove me from those things, because those things take me over to the dark side. Those things take me over to that dark world. And when I'm in that dark world and I want the pain to stop, I need that ease and comfort that comes at first with that drink. So every morning I have to ask for these things to be removed, you know, and that's why I love the prayers, the serenity prayer, the step 3 prayer, and then, you know, the step 7 prayer. The prayers are amazing. And also what I do now is I pray the St. Francis prayer, right? And what my sponsor taught me was you don't have to do it all. You can choose a line from that St. Francis prayer, and it might be, God help me to love than to be loved. See, I'm trying to change my behavior from wanting to be loved all the time, wanting to be needed. Do you know what I mean? Wanting that attention to help me not to love. Sorry, help me to love than not to love than to be loved. It goes something like that. But I think you know what I mean. And it's about getting the mindset from a selfish state to a selfless state. And the St. Francis prayer is so beautiful with that. And you can just meditate on one prayer, you know. Help me to love than to be loved, to understand than to be understood. you know. It's and another thing I do is I turn my attention to someone I can help. I go to newcomer meetings, man. I go to newcomer meetings, and these newcomers, they're the most beautiful souls, man. They're the most beautiful souls, and they're breaking, and they're breaking inside, and only people like me who have gone through the 12 steps can be a channel to try and help these people. And that is my primary purpose. So it doesn't even matter if even if you've been sober for 10 days, someone who's come in the rooms and is on day 2, you can help that person. You can be that hope to say, I've got 10 days, man. That's 10 days of miracles. The day counting was the hardest. So I think that it's going from being selfish to selfless, and trying to help others, that really takes me out of self, and takes me, you know, helps me to get on that road to recovery. And yeah, man, there's 12 steps. Grab a sponsor and jump on these 12 steps. So I think that's what I've got. Thanks, Lisa.
Oh, thank you, Maya. And that brings us up to time, guys. So thank you again. Great RICO 12 speaker meeting for all the addicts and their loved ones. If we didn't get to your question, or if you have any other questions, please consider joining our WhatsApp community by sending an email to rico12pod@gmail.com. And you can join in our community and ask those questions. If you'd like to be a future speaker on RICO 12 Afro Euro, please send an email again to rico12pod@gmail.com. If you have not yet rated and reviewed the podcast in Apple Podcasts, please go do so now. It's a great way to work step 12 and sharing this message with others. I invite the audience to come back next week with another great speaker. And one final bit of service back to you, Maya, for lead us out on a prayer of your choice. Thank you so much, Maya.
Thank you. My alcoholic, after a moment of silence for the still suffering alcoholic, both inside and outside of these rooms, and the children caught in the crossfire, the families that are entangled by this disease, man. It's a family disease. So a moment of silence, please. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom
to know the difference.
Thy will, not ours, be done. Amen.
Amen.
So there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Stick and stay, guys. And when you do, come all the way in and sit all the way down. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.